it did not fit in Rosalind's plan. I'm just gonna say that. But the cool thing about what's happening with the show this season, we have turned real life into art, right?
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
with that being said, we really wanted to include a couple more people on the live tonight.
Yes.
At least for Curtis, I see you.
Curtis.
I see you on it. He's in the comments. But we want to include a couple of people in the beginning part of the live, before we bring on some of our other castmates, because we really want to have a discussion about Chicago, especially, but this whole defunding the police situation. Yeah. So with that being said, I am about to invite two more people right now. Kristiana. Kristiana and Damon Williams. So let me find them right quick. I am gonna add, there she is, Kristiana, and I'm gonna send them an invite right quick so they can join this thing with us. It's let's see, where he at? Y'all together?
Yo.
Good.
Hey there, hey there.
Hey. What's up, guys?
What's up?
So thank you for joining us on the live tonight. As we were explaining to some of to some of the people out there that's watching right now, we tried to flip the script on the Shy tonight. You know, we hitting them with the real life issues. Of course, my character Rosalind, I'm not really feeling this whole defunding the police, but Luke.
But it needs to happen. It needs to happen. It needs to happen. And I think this is really cool how like that we're choosing to go down this path of just imagining in a way of depicting what that would kind of look like. And you guys kind of really like made sure it was like on point to some of the things that you guys actually have experienced and are trying to do right now, currently in real life. Yeah.
So let me just give you a little bit of an introduction before we let you guys speak your piece. Kristiana, am I pronouncing your name right?
It's
huh?
Kristiana.
I'm sorry. Kristiana and Damon, they are co-founders of Let Us Breathe Collective, an alliance of artists and activists organizing through a creative lens to imagine a world without prisons and police. So please share with us, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting us into this conversation. I'm really grateful that we have this opportunity to envision what our city could look like if we use other solutions than police to solve our problems. So when we're talking about defunding the police, we're talking about taking money out of a system that we know is violent and putting that money into systems that support life, that actually support healing. So when we're talking about defunding the police, it's not just about deconstructing, although that does need to be deconstructed and dismantled. It's also about building. So mental health services need to be funded. Public housing needs to be funded. Education needs to be funded. Those are the types of things that we need to be investing in. If you invest in a system that is inherently violent, you're going to get violence back. And so what we're talking about when we talk about defunding the police is investing in life-affirming resources for our communities. And this is my real-life brother, and we have been organizing around defunding the police for some years now.
Yeah, absolutely. So in addition to the Let Us Breathe Collective, we're also part of the Defund CPD campaign that launched last summer in the uprising of 2020. And so it's important to know a couple of things about the Chicago Police Department. First, it was instituted the same year as the Indigenous Removal Act, or it was called the Indian Removal Act. It also, from 1973 to 1991, ran one of the most notorious torture rings and is the capital of false confessions in the country. And people around the world have studied the fact that we actually had the first reparations ordinance here from survivors of police torture and incarceration. And so when we say language like defund the police, or really to be more specific, it is divest and invest, it's important that we understand that 40% of Chicago's public resources and public dollars goes to the police department. So that's 2 out of every 5 public dollars. So it's important to understand that while we invest almost $2 billion in police, here in Chicago, we've had the most school closings in the history of the country. We had the biggest destruction of public housing. Half of our mental health facilities got closed. And so as of 2019, we had 12,000 police officers and 1 public psychologist. So what we are saying is that police, and they admit it actually, if you listen to what they say, are not effective solutions to violence, that we need to invest into community institutions, restorative frameworks, new types of responders, mental health services, domestic violence services, resources for the homeless, resources for our elderly, resources for our queer and trans and gender nonconforming community. And it is resources and healing that will actually solve the violence. And so in our city, where there's been this divestment of food, of housing, of childcare, of all the things that keep a community together, there has been this investment across the globe in militarism. And the police are a form of militarism. And the violence in Chicago, as chaotic as it may seem and as traumatic as it is, it's actually a social human problem. It's not a military problem. And if a military institution will not be able to solve it, we need to invest into other institutions that can prevent it and then can respond with healthy alternatives, because incarceration does not work, and we know that very clearly.
And I know, no, you were about to say something?
Yeah, we get to talk.
No, I had a question.
I was just going to say, I know a lot of people will see the violence coming from the police and say like, oh, well, we just need to reform the police, or like, you know, oh, it's just a few bad apples. But we have to understand that policing in America literally evolved from slave patrol.
Absolutely.
Literally, our American policing system came from armed militias whose job it was to return fugitive enslaved people back to their plantations. So police have continued to function in that way since the inception of the, and they will continue to function in that way until we reimagine something differently. And so what I think is so beautiful about what we're doing on the Shy is that we're using art, we're using the power of imagination to ask the question of like, if we had to solve our conflicts with a tool, something other than violence and other than policing, what could those be? And I think it's really important for folks to activate their imaginations around that, because you cannot reform slave patrol. A system that was built on genocide is going to continue to enforce genocide and colonialism in our communities, and it continues to be an occupying force in our communities. And you can't reform that. You have to dismantle it and start over.
Okay, so I do have a question. So, you know, last year when the conversation became, you know, around the world about, you know, defunding the police, a lot of people really don't understand what that means. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You know, as far as like, okay, if you defund the police, are you saying take the police away completely? Like, what exactly do you mean? I mean, I understand the part about, you know, put more money towards programs that is about healing and helping people to be better. But for people, you know, when there's just criminal activity or whatever, what is supposed to happen in that situation?
That's a great question.
You want to take this one?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
So first, I want us to ground in, we are coming out of a legacy, and this is not something that popped out of nowhere. So first, our forefathers and foremothers in movement, whether it be Angela Davis, whether it be Fred Hampton and the Panthers, whether it be SNCC, we're naming this system, we're naming global liberation from the militarized nation state. And so this is a continuation of a long legacy. So yes, we are saying that one day we want a world where we have new institutions and we have new responses. So imagine, right, we're not saying get rid of 911. We're saying imagine when you call someone and you're having an issue, there is someone who is trained and someone who is from that community to respond. Imagine if when there's a domestic violence situation, there's not someone who's going to punish survivors, who are going to dismantle the family, when there is someone who is trained with restorative processes to come. So what we are saying is we don't want absence, right? And that's what people hear. And that's because I believe the media has intentionally made people want to hear that we are just saying get rid of. But what we are saying is this is ineffective. This is harmful. Police aren't trained to do what they think we're doing. Statistically, they actually are not solving violence. About 94% of police calls are for conflict. And what we're saying is we can invest in our community, which is underemployed, unemployed, and has a lack of access to resources, to be that new response system. So we're not saying get rid of emergency response, because people need things. And in Chicago, we have conflict. But that conflict is not because there's soldiers on the corner. It is because there is actual divestment and chaos structurally in how our city is organized. And so we want to reorganize it, not with the militarized force, but with health-centered forces. And that means like expanding what 911 looks like, not detracting it. It is creating people within alignment of liberation of Black folks, because this is also about anti-Black oppression and about we need to create a new society if we want to be healthy.
Yeah, which is to say that like most of the things that people call 911 for don't need someone with a gun to show.
Right.
It needs someone who is trained to de-escalate. It needs someone who is trained in mental health services. It needs someone who is trained in trauma. And so imagine if the menu of options of who you could get when you call 911 was more than just like someone with a gun. So ready to whoop your ass.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right. Is we want someone who can respond with care, someone who can respond, someone who knows you, right? Like someone who like knows, who's familiar with you, someone from your community.
Knows the neighborhood, right?
And those are the things that we can invest in and build structurally if we're not spending 40% of our entire city budget on just policing.
And if I could one brief, and I'll be quick on this thing. From a moral standpoint, particularly for the Black people who are watching, who I just want to extend love to, we need to know the history of our country and be politically educated. Our 13th Amendment of the Constitution says that slavery shall not exist in this United States or any of its jurisdiction, except for punishment of a crime. So even when police are not harassing, even when police are not doing their jobs poorly, when a kind, generous police officer is doing their job well, what they are doing when that judge then slams that gavel is expanding a legalized slave system. And I'm saying that slavery is not actually going to heal violence, that when you enslave and traumatize people and torture people in prison facilities, they come back home. And that is creating the conflict. When you destroy housing, destroy schools, and then destroy people's minds and bodies, that's why we have shootings on Memorial Day weekend, not because there's an absence of cops.
I get what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying. Okay, I live in Atlanta right now, right? And so in Atlanta, it's like break-ins and all kind of stuff is at an all-time high or whatever. So in a situation like that, what do you think should happen?
Well, police don't prevent crimes. Police after crime has been committed. So, you know, divestment, when we talk about abolition of the police, we're talking about crime prevention. What are the things that we can do on the front end so that nobody needs to come in your house because they are taken care of? Police is only a reactionary, violent response to crimes that have already been committed.
Yep. And that's actually a really great example, Kandi. So let's think that through of what happens. Just the resources. So your house gets broken into, and let's say you lose some of your belongings that are precious to you, right? And that's a terrible thing. What we do now is we call a military that's then someone's getting paid to drive around, find somebody. They might find the right person, they might not. They're probably going to do nothing, actually. I've had my house multiple times. 9 times out of 10, they're going to do absolutely nothing. But what they could do is then go use force, maybe hurt somebody. Then we have to pay a judge, bailiff. We have to keep somebody. We have to make sure they have health care for 18 months to 2 years. And what if we use those same resources to replace your and to make sure that you had a counselor, and to make sure that your children had an after-school program to talk about what happened? What if you got the same resources that we invested in punishment to healing your loss and healing your harm? And if we do that every time somebody is harmed, invest in restoration and transforming, actually the violence will stop. But secondly, I think you would rather get your TV back than we spend $100,000 incarcerating somebody who was in a desperate place enough to break into your home.
A reimagination of the system.
Repair and restore.
Repair. Mm.
Okay. Well, do you have, because it was a lot more information that, well, first of all, you just gave us a lot of information.
Awesome.
And then,
awesome.
And I'm sure there are a lot more details, because some of the things that I was like really like surprised by was, you know, like when you broke down the amount of money that is spent on the police, and, you know,
$4 million a day. Actually, almost like $4.5 million a day. Every